Is anybody else online? Just testing, see if I'm logged in.
I can hear you, Chief.
10-4, go. Back on mute.
We'll call the meeting of the regular city council meeting of October 13th to order. You may notice that we're all wearing masks. The latest directions from the chief medical officer in the province of New Brunswick and verified by our EOC office is that within City Hall at least, masks are to be worn at all times. Perhaps, I don't know if it's in our individual offices or not, if the door is closed, but in an open space like this, in meeting rooms, they're on. So our voices may be a little bit muffled for those that are watching, but we're doing this to protect ourselves, our teammates, and people in City of Fredericton. We'll begin with a poem from our poet laureate, Jenna Lynn Albert.
Thank you, Your Worship. This poem is by Kim Winston, who's an MG Plateau and queer writing activist from the Saskatchewan poet. Sorry, my own.
Yeah, Jenna Lynn, your voice is breaking up. I don't.
I'm just going to turn down my audio. And we'll try that. Jay Simpson is an OG Cree Saulteaux Indigiqueer writer and activist from the Sepotawaiak Cree Nation with Scottish and French settler ancestry. Their poems and essays are published in Poetry is Dead, This Magazine, Prism International, Sad Magazine, Guts Magazine, Room, Today's Parent, Grain, and Subterrane. Simpson is also published in Hustling Verse, an anthology of sex workers' poetry, as well as Love After the End, an anthology of two-spirit and indigiqueer speculative fiction. And the poem is called Teeth and Sharp Bones, a dialogue. Some of us had lived long enough to think that we had made it out. So some of us decided to start anew, love again, try and bring fire back into this world. What we didn't expect was to be burying our own children, because when they entered the world of the living, we thought we had truly made it out alive. Yet still they hold these babies accountable for the sins of our ancestors. Let's get something straight for once. We didn't commit any sin, unless you count breathing as sin. So I guess that John A. MacDonald wanted us dead was sin enough. When I was a child, you took me from my mother. You said she didn't know how to be one. You stole her mother and her mother's mother before her, gave us to white women wolves, and got mad at us for having teeth and sharp bones. Of course we'd have edges and sharpness. What did you expect when the white women wolves decided they were hungry for a little more than some quick income every month? They'd sink their teeth into our soft flesh, carve contemporary runes of colonization and abuse into our bones. Don't get mad at my teeth and sharp edges. Even after moving mountains and oceans, I couldn't stop this. Couldn't change this cycle in its tracks. Even I, all fire and flood bloodline and bloodlust, couldn't stop these colonial governments from trying to steal my kin. I've buried too many of my cousins, and now I'm burying their children too. Don't think this anything new. You call us bad parents, fail to recognize you stole our parents the moment they were born, and you call their parents bad parents again, fail to recognize you also stole their parents when they were born. Hell, you stole their parents' parents when they were children. Trying to flee from white men and women adorned in red and black. Some of us lived long enough to think we made it out, and now we're burying our own children too, and they're burying us. Don't dare think this cycle ended with me. I couldn't stop it. You call us dangerous when you took away all of our weapons except our teeth and bones, and now you're upset your flesh got caught on the sharp edges. Why were you there in the first place? Thank you very much. Jay's poem is about the 60s scoop, wherein a lot of Indigenous children were taken away from their families. The poem also touches on residential schools and the millennial scoop. Indigenous children are still being taken away from their families at high rates and without proper justification for those children to be taken away. Thank you very much.
Thank you for that, General Lynn. It's an important topic. One of the, I recall I was invited to speak at a national conference, I think it was in Vancouver, on the city's efforts on working with the province on affordable housing. And the guest speaker was one of the co-chairs of the Truth and Reconciliation hearings, Chief Wilton Littlejohn, and he was, I think, a Cree from northern Manitoba. And he was speaking about when they called, in his First Nation, they called September the Crying Month. And the reason for that is that's when officials in planes would land at the airport and take the children away, and the mothers would cry. And that stuck with me ever since I've heard that. That was several years ago. So that's that poem's very topical. So thank you very much for that. I'd now like to turn the floor over to Councillor Eric Price.
Thank you, Your Worship. Thank you for giving me this time to speak. I am sincerely sorry for the offensive words I chose to use during last week's City Council meeting. I was extremely impressed by Husani Raymond's presentation on behalf of Black Lives Matter Fredericton, and I wanted to ensure that the staff report that Council asked for would be completely inclusive of all races and religions. My choice of words was unthinking and stupid and ignorant. I am so proud to represent a ward that includes St. Mary's First Nation, and I feel lucky to have made so many friends there over the years. I apologize to them and to all members of St. Mary's First Nation, as well as all other Indigenous peoples, and to the other residents of our city that I have offended and disappointed. I am hoping that this incident creates an awareness that we all need to do better in learning about our Indigenous communities, customs, and sensitivities. I know that I do. Thank you, Willie Wan.
Thank you, Councillor Chase. Councillor Price. Sorry about that. Thank you, Councillor Price. On behalf of City Council, I'd like to apologize for us not addressing that issue at last week's meeting. It's caused concern and some hurt in our community, and indeed with some of the people at the St. Mary's First Nation. Our relationship with St. Mary's is very important to Fredericton, and so when our friends hurt, we all hurt. Ladies and gentlemen, as a society, and as elected officials and as a governing body, we are collectively moving along a wave of rapid societal change, awareness, and reconciliation. Each day brings potentially a teaching moment for all of us. Last Monday was one of those moments. I spoke last week with Chief Polchis to convey our apology. I also told him that after this meeting, I was hopeful he would accept my request to meet with him to discuss how we, and he and I, and our communities can continue to work together in friendship and in reconciliation. But we should never lose sight of the fact that the relationship between St. Mary's and Fredericton is indeed, as I said, long-standing and respectful. The service provision agreements and cooperation between our communities have often been identified as a model of excellence across Canada for First Nations and municipalities. In fact, in 2005, a council member from St. Mary's, I think if my memory serves me correct, was Councillor Tony Gabriel, and myself, we were invited to an FCM conference in Halifax to make a joint presentation on that very subject, our excellent mutual cooperation. And ladies and gentlemen, in any relationship, there are good days, and there's also days when the friendship is tested. I am confident, humbly confident, that we'll meet this test and continue to work together for the betterment of our communities. Our people expect and deserve nothing less. Thank you. I understand some other people may want to speak. No? Okay, we'll move on. Oh. Okay, I was waiting for hands or so. Councillor McDermott.
Thanks, Your Worship, and thank you for the apology on behalf of Council. Councillor Price, thank you very much for the heartfelt apology. I was disappointed last Monday. I think a lot of us around the table were. I'm not going to rehash all of that, nor am I going to repeat what the Mayor said in terms of the apology on that. But you did mention how this is a teachable moment, and I think that really we need to walk away with that. As a council and my position as co-chair of the governance committee, we've talked a lot about onboarding new councillors. What happens in May when we have an election and there's a new slate of councillors coming in? I think there's an opportunity at this point to, we've already talked about having GBA plus, the gender-based analysis plus training, which I believe council should have done by now or is in the process of doing. That we go beyond that, we look at cultural sensitivity. And it's not something that necessarily has to wait until May of next year. I think that I would benefit. I think most members around the table would benefit. I'm not going to make a motion, but I think that as one of those teachable moments, it's a moment to reflect on the world that we occupy and the world that we want to get towards. And if we're going to get towards it, we have to recognize that we need help getting there. So thank you.
Councillor Erickson.
Thank you, Your Worship. Please accept my thanks again for the apology that you delivered tonight on behalf of council. I appreciate that. And thank you, Councillor Price, for your apology. I appreciate that as well. In getting my thoughts together for the meeting tonight, I took a moment to Google, how do you make a formal apology? Thinking to myself, you know, who's not going to need this information when you're speaking formally and publicly? It can be helpful. And one of the elements in it struck me, and it's have a plan for what you would like to do moving forward. And I think you made an excellent suggestion in a meeting with Chief Polchis to talk about how we can move our relationship forward. But I would like more of a plan. I would like to move that staff prepare a report to bring to the Strategic and External Relations Committee on how council can learn about and start moving to fulfill our responsibilities as a treaty people. And I think that would be an excellent way to educate council, to begin to engage with a lot of the concepts that are part of our relationship with Indigenous communities in New Brunswick and in Canada. And I'm certainly hoping that I get support of council for this moment, and that we can then begin to add some of these elements to the onboarding of new councillors, and it may have other untold positive benefits for how we govern our municipality. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Harrison. Councillor Rogers.
Thank you, Your Worship, and also thank you for reaching out to Chief Polchis and extending an apology on behalf of council. And thank you, Councillor Price, for your comments tonight and for the comments that you made the day following. I too emailed Chief Polchis myself to apologize because I felt terribly sorry that I didn't say anything that night. I heard what was said. While I know in my heart of hearts there was no racist intent in the comments, I know the words to be racist. I know them to be hurtful and demeaning, and I did nothing. And I think what's imperative on all of us is that when we hear things that we know could be hurtful to people in our community, that we speak out. And I have replayed this scenario so many times in my head of when would have been an opportune moment that night to have just said, ho, 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 we don't use those words. But I didn't, and the moment passed, and for that I'm very, very sorry. And I've committed to myself that I won't do that again. That when I hear language that I think is hurtful to anyone in this forum, that I will speak out. I think that we all need to be very intentional in our sensitivity. And I'm supportive of having sensitivity training. I've been a proponent of GBA Plus for a very long time, and it certainly was a recommendation that came out of the Gender Diversity Committee. But I think also sometimes there's a choice that we just make, a choice to learn, and then a choice to apply that and to pick our words and to be careful. And we hear all the time, oh, I don't like to have to pick my words. Well, do you know what? If picking your words means that you don't hurt someone, I think it's a worthwhile practice. And so I guess I would just implore all of us to do that. Just be sensitive when we speak, and remember that we're speaking often to people that don't sit around this table and who have a different perspective and a different background. So I guess I just wish to apologize. I apologize for not speaking out that night, and I commit that I won't let that happen again. I won't let that moment pass again. So thank you.
Thank you, Councillor. Councillor Grandy.
Yeah, thank you, Your Worship. I think, I too sent an email off to Chief Polchis after that meeting. Yes, I wish you could turn back the clock and comment on that, but it didn't happen. And thank you, Councillor Price, for your apology tonight, and Your Worship for recognizing an apology as well on where we need to go. And my words are pretty simple. I look forward to the discussions that you will undertake with the chief and how we can, how they can see us having a better relationship with them and vice versa, and coming to a good consensus in a very robust discussion and a very respectful discussion among both parties. And I think that would form the basis of what Councillor McDermott talks about is the onboarding process and everything. I think it's very imperative that both parties are in full discussion about what kind of training or what kind of onboarding process and type of words to be used, in making sure that new counselors and even present counselors understand regarding this issue. So I look forward to your discussions and your output and further discussions that we can have ongoing, and then creating a document or creating a program for new counselors as they come on board as well. Thank you.
Okay. Deputy Mayor.
Thank you, Your Worship, and thank you for your apology on behalf of Council. Thank you, Councillor Price, for your apology. I know this hasn't been easy on you or your family over the last week, for sure. And I apologize, reach out to those folks at St. Mary's First Nation. I have a number of close friends there, including one of my best friends from St. Mary's, who I've spoken to quite a bit over the last week. And I agree with all the comments here. This is, it's an unfortunate incident, but it's something that can turn into a positive. I think it should be imperative that there is some type of training with each new council, and obviously we can lead the way and get that started. We can't fix all the wrongs and injustices over the last 100-some years, but we can start by learning about St. Mary's community. It's a big part of our community, and a lot of the struggles are government-to-government issues. Within the community, St. Mary's functions very well, integrated with all the members of Fredericton. We support each other's businesses, go to school together, play sports together, all kinds of things. So there's a lot of positives there. But I think if we can really get together, learn more about what their issues are. They're a shining example of what a First Nation community can be. They're probably the leader, if not close to the leader in the province, for being progressive. And we're the same as a municipality countrywide. So imagine what we can do working together. So I think it's a matter of getting in there, learning more about what their initiatives are, how we can reach out and help, and how they can help us, and working together, because they are a big part of our community. So thank you.
Thank you. Councillor McGarity.
Look, this is an opportunity for the city to really excel. And out of something bad, you always look for the good. And that's what I've been taught. I think we can, as a council, we can look after ourselves and do all the things that are necessary to include everybody. And when we talk about all these isms that are out there that fall under the umbrella of discrimination, we have to look to the community. We can do it as internally as a city and as a council, but this is the time to expand it into the community and let the community members treat everybody to be inclusive. We were all born into this world so why are there still people out? So they're the questions we have to answer. The community has to answer. We have to rally our community and get our leaders and get everybody going in the same direction and treating it with respect and dignity for whatever the city stands for. And that's getting at the community, and that's the next big step. There's a beginning, but there will be no end. There's going to be some downfalls, but there's going to be some wins. It's a long, long step. There's no magic bullets here. There's no magic wand. It's a lot of hard work, a lot of dialogue, but we need to start that. Thank you.
Thank you. No further comments. Again, thank you, everybody. And Councillor Price, I'd say it's been a hard week and for everybody. So we appreciate everybody's thoughtful words tonight and comments. Councillor Erickson.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. As a point of order, I moved a motion and you're required to ask for a seconder.
Oh, that is a good point. I was waiting for somebody to second it and the moment slipped by. Seconded by Councillor Rogers. Okay. The motion was for a staff report. I can't repeat it word for word, but I think it was quite clear.
I'm happy to repeat it.
Yeah, please do.
It's simply to generate a staff report to be delivered to the Strategic and External Relations Committee to educate and inform Council on our responsibilities as a treaty people.
Okay, been moved and seconded. On the question? All those in favor of the motion? Those against? The motion is carried. Thank you, Councillor Erickson. Now we have another item before we move to approval of agenda, and Councillor Grandy.
Yeah, thank you, Worship. Some positive and good news for downtown Fredericton, and especially during our time of COVID. Some of the hardest hit businesses that we have in the city are the restaurant businesses. And earlier this year, we communicated and made a decision to allow outdoor patios to be extended longer, and we put a date on that somewhere, I believe, 1st of October in that area. And I'm proud to announce tonight that in support of the restaurant business, that we're going to allow those patios to stay longer in the period. We will be announcing that kind of date that we will allow them to stay out on the sidewalks and in front of their premises in the upcoming days. We'll be communicating. We have been communicating with Downtown Fredericton and of course our engineering department. And of course, the one caveat is looking at the weather forecast and ensuring that our sidewalks are free for any snow that may happen in the upcoming period. But I'm pretty confident with the weather the way it's going, we'll be good for at least a couple more weeks and go from there. But there's more coming out in a communication further this week. Thank you, Worship.
Thank you. City Clerk, approval of agenda.
Thank you, Worship. We would like to add an additional item, 5.3. This came pretty late in the day, so I'm just going to, since it's on the consent agenda, we'll read out the resolution so council knows exactly what it is that we're discussing. It's recommended that City Council adopt the following resolution. Be it resolved that approval be given to Girl Guides of Canada to canvass door to door in the City of Fredericton to sell Girl Guide cookies from Wednesday, October 21st until Saturday, November 21st, 2020. So that's just an addition of the Girl Guide door-to-door campaign. 5.3, and I just for councils, since the material's not on there, I just want council to know that this has gone, their COVID operational plan has gone through our EOC here and was approved.
Good, thank you. So that'll be item 5.3 in the consent agenda. So that be moved by the agenda moved by Councillor Malay and seconded by Councillor Dara. On the question, all those in favor? Against? The motion is carried. Does anybody have a conflict of interest on any of the items before us tonight? Hearing none, we'll move on to the consent agenda. There's 3 items: library board appointments, CAMA service agreement, and the Girl Guide door-to-door, which we just heard the resolution. And I'd say that be moved by the Deputy Mayor and seconded by Councillor Keenan that we approve the consent agenda. Anybody have any comments? Councillor McDermott.
Yes, thank you. Through your worship. Look, I just want to comment on the nominations for the Fredericton Public Library Board. As many are aware, I've been on that board, sat on that board as council representative for a number of years. It's one of those few board meetings that I actually enjoy going to. It is a wonderful body of individuals who bring so much to it. And I think really what I want to say is that is the quality of applicants that we've had to sit on the board to represent their city. It actually gets harder every year as we go through to say we can only take 2 or 1 or 3 depending upon what the year is, and this year was no exception. The 2 choices this year. Again, it came down to culling through, getting it down to a short list, and then getting down to another short list, and then having more conversations because it was really, really a challenge. So my hat is off to the community for actually stepping out. It's competitive, so get your game going if you want to be on the Fredericton Public Library Board, and I mean that in all seriousness because it's actually a pretty awesome board. So thank you.
Thank you. And if memory serves me right, it's the busiest library in the province.
Yes.
And I'm going to keep repeating that until somebody corrects me.
Yeah, it is.
So all in favor of the consent agenda? Against? The motion is carried. Third reading of bylaws. We'll wait for Councillor Malay to leave. And again, for people that are watching, we'd like to explain on zoning bylaws. If you're not present for the first and second reading, you cannot participate in the third and final reading, and that's why Councillor Malay has to leave the chambers. So bylaw Z5 198 173 Clark Street rezoning. Councillor McGarity.
Thank you, Worship. Be it resolved that terms and conditions be adopted.
That be seconded by Councillor Price. On the question? All those in favor of the motion? Those against? Motion is carried. Councillor Price. Yes, you could, at the third reading on the question, if you wish. Okay. Councillor McGarity, carry on.
Be it resolved that bylaw number Z-5.198, a bylaw to amend bylaw number Z-5, a zoning bylaw of the city of Fredericton, be read summary pursuant to section 15, subsection 4 of the Local Governance Act.
To be seconded by Councillor Price on the question. All those in favor of the motion? Those against? Motion is carried. Third reading.
Whereas municipalities may make bylaws pursuant to the Local Governance Act. Now therefore be it enacted by the Council of the City of Fredericton pursuant to the authority vested in section 10 of the Local Governance Act, SNB 217C18, summarized as follows. Purpose of the proposed bylaw number Z-5198 be amended bylaw number Z-5 by zoning the property located at 173 Clark Street from residential zone R2 to multi-residential zone 2 MR2 to permit the construction of a two-story 12-unit apartment building, and be it resolved that bylaw number Z-5.198 bylaw to amend bylaw Z-5 zoning bylaw of the City of Fredericton be given third reading by title.
Be seconded by Councillor Price. And on the question, Councillor Price.
Thank you, Your Worship. I've been waiting to speak on this one because it's in my ward, but Councillor McGarity stole my thunder once again.
That's my error. I forget which where the line was.
I'll let it slide this time. Yeah. Look, this is, I'm glad to see this one going through. This is a great infill development on a piece of property that's been sitting vacant for quite some time. 12 units in an area that's that can really use some infill with, they're close to shopping, they're close to drugstores, they're close to everything they could possibly need, is all within walking distance, a skip from the trail. So I'm glad this developer took a chance on this location, and glad to see this one going through. Thank you.
Thank you. Any others? Being no others, no other questions, all those in favor of the motion? Those against? Motion is carried. 6.2, bylaw number Z5202, that's 275, 281 Rainsford Lane, rezoning and subdivision. Councillor Chase.
Thank you, Your Worship. Be it resolved that bylaw number Z5.202, a bylaw to amend bylaw number Z5, a zoning bylaw for the City of Fredericton, be read by summary pursuant to section 15, subsection 4 of the Local Governance Act.
Be seconded by Councillor McDermott. On the question. All those in favor of the motion? Those against? Motion is carried. Carry on.
Whereas municipalities may make bylaws pursuant to the Local Governance Act, now therefore be it enacted by the Council of the City of Fredericton and pursuant to the authority vested in it by section 10 of the Local Governance Act, SNB 2017, Chapter 18, summarized as follows. The purpose of the proposed bylaw number Z5.202 is to amend bylaw number Z5 by rezoning the property located at 275 to 281 Rainsford Lane from residential zone 2, R2, to residential zone 3, R3, in order to permit the construction of semi-detached dwelling units. And be it resolved that bylaw number Z5.202, a bylaw to amend bylaw number Z5, a zoning bylaw for the City of Fredericton, be given third reading by title.
Seconded by Councillor McDermott. On the question. All those in favor of the motion? Those against? The motion is carried. Carry on.
Be it resolved that the subdivision to create two R3 lots at 275 to 281 Rainsford Lane be approved.
Seconded by Councillor McDermott. On the question. All those in favor of the motion? Those against? Motion is carried. Thank you.
Thank you.
Item 6.3, bylaw number Z5203, Burn Street, a rezoning and subdivision. Councillor Peters.
Thank you, Worship. Be it resolved that terms and conditions be adopted.
Second by Councillor Grandy. On the question? All those in favor of the motion? Those against? Motion is carried.
Be it resolved that bylaw number Z-5.203, a bylaw to amend bylaw number Z-5, a zoning bylaw for the city of Fredericton, be read by summary pursuant to section 15, sub 4 of the Local Governance Act.
Seconded by Councillor Grandy. On the question? All those in favor of the motion? Those against? Motion is carried. Carry on.
Whereas municipalities may make bylaws pursuant to the Local Governance Act, now therefore be enacted by the Council of the City of Fredericton and pursuant to the authority vested in it by Section 10 of the Local Governance Act, SNB 2017, Chapter 18, summarized as follows. The purpose of the proposed bylaw Z-5.203 to amend bylaw number Z-5 by rezone a portion of PID 755069998 located along Burn Street from residential zone 3 R3 to residential zone 5 R5 to residential mini home zone RMH in order to create 20 lots in the residential mini home zone, and be it further resolved that bylaw number Z-5.203, a bylaw to amend bylaw number Z-5, a zoning bylaw for the city of Fredericton, be given third reading by title.
Seconded by Councillor Grandy. On the question? All those in favor of the motion? Those against? Motion is carried.
Be it resolved that the subdivision to create 20 RMH lots on extension of Burn Street be approved.
Seconded by Councillor Grandy. On the question? All those in favor of the motion? Those against? Motion is carried. Committee reports 7.1 Victoria Circle Public Art Contract. Councillor Rogers.
Thank you, Your Worship. So this is about the public art that's going to be going at Victoria Circle. Victoria Circle was identified as being a major gateway to the city's downtown and therefore an ideal spot for some public art. So the council budgeted money to implement the installation of public art by Marlene Hilton Moore. And Hilton Moore's design is called Blue Circle, and it was selected through a juried process, which included local arts professionals and a member of the Arts and Culture Advisory Committee. The design was presented to council in July. We accepted the selection committee's recommendation and authorized staff to draft a contract with the artist. So this motion tonight is about the contract. Be it resolved that the Council of the City of Fredericton approve and authorize the contract between the City of Fredericton and Marlene Hilton Moore respecting the piece of public art known as Blue Circle in the amount of $125,000, HST included, for a term ending July 31st, 2021. And be it further resolved that the Council of the City of Fredericton authorizes the Mayor and City Clerk to execute the contract on behalf of the municipality and such other legal documents as may be required to facilitate this resolution. I so move.
Be seconded by Councillor Erickson. On the question? Deputy Mayor.
Thank you, Your Worship. I really struggled with this. When it came to budget a couple years ago, I was against it, and I've tried to warm up to the idea. I'm sure it's going to be a beautiful piece if it passes and moves forward, and a very talented artist. But my concern is the timing of this. We are in the middle of a pandemic. We don't know where we are in that. We have a lot of people in our community who are losing jobs, businesses that are going under, people that are burying themselves in mountains of debt trying to stay afloat. And I just have a hard time approving $125,000 for what I would consider a nicety, not really a need. At this time, I just can't imagine what would be going through those people's heads if they see us doing this. I do acknowledge the importance of public art, but I think given the time and, budget issues we're dealing with and everything else that's going on in our community, I just think it's poor timing, and I won't be supporting it, Worship. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor. Anybody else wish to speak? Councillor McGarity.
Yeah,
Deputy Mayor, sorry, not Councillor.
I just, Your Worship, the way I look at it is being a lot of these pieces of art, it's nice to have somebody locally. I know we have some very talented people here, and I don't even know where this artist originates from. But I mean, it's something that if we're using taxpayers' money, we should, and I know there's rules wrapped around purchasing, and I get all that, but it'd be nice to support people here that some of our art, especially during these trying times. So it's a struggle sometimes for some of them, like, you know, so it's unfortunate, but you know, as I say, I understand the purchasing rules but it would be nice to support some of the artists here that under these times, as the deputy mayor said, are struggling. So thank you.
Councillor Rogers, you might be able to advise that this was a national public call, right? So
Yes.
local artists had every opportunity to bid as well.
Yes, she originally is from New Brunswick, but she's no longer living in New Brunswick. But
Yes.
it was a national call, and she responded to the call, and there were artists from all over. I believe at the time when this was brought to council, there was actually a breakdown of where the artists who submitted works, where they were from. But it is, I mean, we have a public art policy, and this. And so this very much falls within purchasing. You know, there are rules and regulations that are applied. We were fortunate to actually have an artist who was born in New Brunswick and very familiar with Fredericton, who responded to the call. And she's an acclaimed artist with work across the country. So I guess that's and she is a working artist, and like many struggling through the pandemic, artists, I would argue, have been amongst the greatest hit because they're self-employed. They have not been eligible for a lot of the programs that have been put forth by the nation. So this is creating work not only for this artist, but also for the people who do the installation and who support the work. So it's an economic endeavor. I mean, public art is an economic endeavor. It's not a nicety. And it's a service. It's a skilled service that we are paying. That this motion is recommending be paid for out of money that was budgeted and approved in last year's budget. So I'm very comfortable with this motion and the quality of this person's work and her origins and her skills and the piece itself, which is really quite spectacular and a beautiful thing to view in a time such as now. If not art now, when?
Thank you. Anybody else wish to speak? Councillor Erickson.
Thank you, Worship, and thank you, Councillor Rogers, for mentioning the budget dynamic that was involved there. And perhaps a better financial officer of the city than myself could explain this, but it's my belief that if for some reason this project didn't go forward and that money wasn't spent, we wouldn't be able to spend it in next year's budget anyway. It goes into a second year carry forward, if I'm correct. And it's my understanding and my hope that we're not going to be desperate for COVID spending money in the 2022 budget. That will be on the far side of that terrible phenomenon and back in a more normal financial universe. And I certainly hope that is the case, and that should give some consolation to the deputy mayor. At least when this art project goes forward, I think it will achieve the purpose that we had in mind for it at the time. And those purposes will be consistent moving forward. I appreciate the call out to austerity because of the financial challenges being suffered by many in our community. But we can help them without, I think, taking this project off the rails.
Thank you. It's been moved and seconded, and there's been questions asked. So all those in favor of the motion? Those against? Deputy Mayor, Councillor McGarity, the motion is carried. So, oh, sorry, Councillor Grant, did I miss you?
No. Just before we end, I'd like to maybe just make a positive comment on development here in the city.
Please do.
Before we leave.
Please do.
Appropriate now?
Yes.
Yeah, okay. Normally, we talk about these numbers at Development Committee, but we have a tight agenda coming up this Thursday. And so I'd just like to give a shout out to where we're going in the city. We're at $121 million in development as of September. Our banner year last year was 136.5 million. So we're on track. We have a quarter left of development in the city. And we're on track to probably almost equal that, if not to break that. And I just want to categorize some of this because it's really important with COVID going on and what's happening here in the city of Fredericton. So to date, we've doubled the amount of new single units, residential single units being built this year. 2-unit dwellings, we've doubled that, more than doubled those. Townhouses, we've more than doubled the number of townhouses, the value of number of townhouses. Apartment buildings, we're up $15 million compared to last year at this time in apartment buildings. And then there's some institutional and government. And basically what I'm trying to get to is things that I'm seeing and trends I'm seeing. For example, in Fulton Heights, there's people advertising in Fulton Heights to want to buy houses in Fulton Heights, not because it's just Fulton Heights, but there's people from Quebec and Ontario coming in, moving down, and starting to buy residential units in our city. Our city's growing, and we talk about our population growth. We talk about immigration, which we talk around the table a lot. And what's happening is we're actually getting migration coming in from out of province, from the other provinces, because of COVID and because now you can start to work from home with technology. And so what a great place to come and work right here in New Brunswick. You can live here, work for a large company and do it by technology. So we're starting to see a really good trend. Now, the other side of that is, and some people will say, yeah, but that's not, you can't value the success of your city on this, but, and that's correct. But the other part of this is we need to keep building like this. We need to keep, especially apartment buildings in those areas, the demand in order to get the vacancy rate to an area where apartment rents start to become more affordable and things. We need to get a number of units online. And I had a private conversation with one of the developers, and they're just saying, look, we can't build them fast enough. We'd like to build more, and they would like to get more stock on the market so we can start to rationalize rents in here. But until we get to that point, that tipping point probably won't be for a couple more years yet. So the encouragement is here. Our city's growing in a time of COVID. We have people coming in and wanting to live here and work from here. I think it's all good news for the city of Fredericton. So thank you, Your Worship.
Thank you, Councillor Grandy. There is a lot of confidence in our city. Everybody's going through a rough time, and thank you for those comments. But we have a very solid master plan for the city. Our Imagine Fredericton growth strategy, well researched, well debated by the citizens, and it's inspired confidence in the private sector and the public sector to move to here and invest in here. So we have a plan, we stick to it, and it's bearing fruit. So thanks for those, and it's very solid numbers, and we have a bright future. So motion to adjourn, that would be Peters and Price. All those in favor? Against? Motion is carried. The meeting is adjourned.